On the Autocar show today, the Renegade Commando and Sport S, Mercedes all-new SLC 43 AMG, and the road trip with Mahindra Adventure.
A completely unknown brand has been making big waves in the Indian motorcycle market. The story started way back in 2014 as things just jumped off the scale at the 2016 Auto Expo when Global unveiled their range of cruisers for India. These motorcycles are apt for the Indian motorcyclists who are heading out and exploring the country, and their lineup has been priced very well, but I think the reason why it's attracted so much attention is the way the bikes look.
Cruiser family is called Renegade, and these two pre-production prototypes for test are the Sport S and the Commando. Yes, the bikes look inspired. The Commando seems to be a scaled-down Harley-Davidson fat boy, but it doesn't look like a cheap rip-off. The design is proportionate and attractive. In fact, it looks substantial. The 16-inch front wheel and the tall tire sideboard give it a more weighty look at the front. The deep and boxy fender and chunky 140-section tire at the rear completes the look. The rest of the design is minimal, as it should be, with the speedometer console embedded on the tank. The handlebars are wide and seat the rider in the upright position. The seat itself is comfy, and the pillion gets a backrest as well. In terms of features, the Commando has a simple analog and digital instrument cluster, and it has a USB port as well. Very cleverly, has kept the majority of the components the same, but have managed to give the two motorcycles completely different looks. The Sport S is bright and racy. To get the stance right, the Sport S uses a 17-inch front rim with a lower profile tire as compared to the Commando. And to make it visually lighter, the fenders are smaller as well. The Suzuki Intruder-like fairing for the headlamp, the flat drag handlebar, and of course the superb contrasting paint make the Sport S very attractive. The LED lights on the 4 tank scoops are an extra here, but they do look a bit tacky. While the instrument cluster is identical to the Commando, on the Sport S it is mounted on the handlebar. However, the handlebar lock is quite painful to reach.
There's no doubt about it, wherever these motorcycles go, they're going to turn heads. But it's when you hop onto the saddle and examine them a little bit closely, you realize fit, finish, and quality isn't as good as you would have expected it to be. Plastics feel a bit flimsy at places, not as well fitted, and well, some things just don't seem as well aligned. For instance, the handlebar on this feels a bit off.
And the problem is that there are plenty more of such instances. For instance, water had seeped into the LED strips. The switches were crudely shaped. Indicators were not aligned. The fork shroud clanged over bumps on the Commando. And even though there was plenty of fuel, the fuel gauge read a little too low. And the badges looked like they would fall off after a wash.
So overall, in terms of the quality and finish, it could have been better. But what we also want to find out is whether the motorcycles have the potential of getting Bajaj Avenger customers to scale up, or Royal Enfield customers to look this way. For that, we have to hop onto the saddle.
Both these motorcycles are powered by a 279cc single-cylinder liquid-cooled engine, but in the interest of keeping costs down, they use a carburetor instead of fuel injection. At almost 25 bhp, power is healthy, and so is the 21.8 Newton-meters of torque. As can be expected from a short-stroke 4-valve engine, everything is just made a little higher up in the rev range, which isn't ideal for a cruiser. And weighing in at 172 kilograms, the bikes are also on the heavier side. But there is a 6-speed gearbox to help things along. Sadly, the ratios chosen end up blunting the performance. For instance, you can do 70 kilometers per hour in first gear and 105 in second. Quite simply, the gearing is too tall. So you end up needing to rev up the engine to get going. The good thing is, the short-stroke engine can be revved hard. So you can get to 140 kph, but the bikes just seem to lose steam after that, no matter which gear you are in.
Now, when it comes to the engine, things are a bit of a mixed bag. The performance, for instance, it's quite happy to amble along at low speeds with gentle throttle inputs. But when you really open the gas, you'll find that it feels a little dull as compared to what you would have expected from a near 300cc engine. And the other thing is the refinement. It's smooth as long as you're under 70-80 kilometers an hour, but when you climb higher up the speed range, you'll find there is a bit of a buzz through the pegs and the bars, and that will get annoying when you are doing long distances. And the other really annoying bit is the gearbox. It just feels very socky. But there is an area where the motorcycles feel quite special.
Both motorcycles share a rugged, split dual cradle frame. They use a traditional telescoping fork at the front, twin shock absorbers at the rear, and a box section swing arm. So, they are simple but rugged all around. The Commando uses wire sport wheels, while the Sport S uses alloys. Cornering clearance is quite limited, even by cruiser standards, but the tires from TVS are spot on and give you plenty of confidence whether through the corners or when braking hard. Yes, the single 280mm disc brake at the front lacks in feel, but it provides plenty of bite.
Now, the most enjoyable part about these motorcycles has to be the way the chassis and suspension work. The steering feels light and precise, there's great amount of confidence from the tires, great straight line stability as well. So this will be an easy motorcycle for newer riders to hop onto as well. The seat height is also very low, and along with that, you get great ride quality. The suspension not only gives you the sense of stability, it also soaks up bad roads quite well.
With an 18-liter fuel tank, the Renegade should offer a solid range. Surprisingly, motorcycles have launched the Renegade Sport S at 1.49 lakh rupees, while the Commando is offered at 1.59 lakh rupees ex-showroom Delhi. They are temptingly priced, but are they worth your money?
The bottom line, if you are in the market for a cruiser, the Renegade siblings deserve a closer look. You can see that and Lohia have got several things right. The chassis and suspension are the highlights, no doubt. And the engine, if it could be tweaked for better responsiveness and refinement, would certainly hit the spot. There are areas such as fit, finish and refinement which bring the question of longevity into the spotlight. Now, if and Lohia could fix that, the Renegade siblings could be serious contenders in the cruiser market.
Motorcycles have promised that the final production spec bikes for review will be available around September. Let's hope cruiser enthusiasts will have something to cheer for then, because as of now, the Renegade Commando and Sport S have a lot of promise that they haven't quite lived up to.
It's been a busy year or two for the people at Mercedes-Benz India. When they're not launching new cars altogether, they're busy updating the old ones and giving them fresh new names. Now, the ML became the GLE, the GL became the GLS, and now it's the turn of the SLK that's become the SLC. It's got a new look, it's got new mechanicals, and it's also got a brand new price. Let's see what it's like. First things first, Mercedes has launched the SLC in AMG, guys. However, this is the 43 AMG, so it's not the full fat AMG experience. In its journey from SLK to SLC, Merc's Roadster has got a new nose. It's not a radical change, but it is very contemporary Mercedes. The grille with its diamond effect looks quite exquisite, and the bumpers are pure AMG. The headlights are new too, and their LEDs constantly adjust to optimize brightness while reducing glare for oncoming traffic. There are fewer changes elsewhere, but the long bonnet short tail look still looks very classic. And doesn't the metallic red paint just look sexy? But what about the cabin? I do wish Mercedes-Benz designers spent a bit more time on the inside, because the SLC's cabin looks just like a straight carryover from the SLK's. Yes, there is a new infotainment system and there is fresher detailing here and there, but items like the center console just look and feel outdated today because we've seen them on so many Mercs before. Still, the trim is sporty, the sports seats are supportive, and there's nice red stitching all over. As mentioned, the infotainment system is new, and though not the most intuitive of systems around, it does get navigation and even Apple CarPlay. But if there's one thing that the SLK and now the SLC will be best known for, it's got to be the foldable hardtop roof. So the conditions are good right now. It's not raining. The weather is nice. The roads are empty. I've got a nice car with me. I think it's go time. But before I get into the thick of things, a word on the SLC 43's engine. Well, the SLK 55's naturally aspirated V8 has been replaced by a twin-turbo 3-litre V6 unit. Peak power is 367 HP and max torque is 520 Nm, available in the 2000 to 4200 RPM range. Compared to the SLK 55, the SLC 43 uses a smaller engine. It's got 2 turbos. It makes less power but more torque. The question is, does it feel AMG enough? The answer is yes and no. If you like your AMGs to bubble and growl like the big V8, then you might not like it as much. But this thing still sounds very good. It rasps, it snarls when you really push it, and it's also got AMG Sport exhaust, so it'll pop and crackle, adding to the soundtrack. Where the SLC 43 feels like a proper AMG is the way it goes. There we go! 100 kph comes up in just 5.1 seconds, but thanks to the turbos, you don't have to wind the engine to get to its best. There's strong punch from low down in the rev band, and you get that pushback in your seat pretty much as soon as you weigh down on the throttle pedal. In fact, the SLC 43 is a whole lot quicker than the SLK 55 through the gears. Speaking of gears, the SLC uses Merc's latest 9-speed gearbox, 2 up on the SLK 55, and it's made a big difference. The SLC 43's gearbox works really well with the engine. It's lenient enough in automatic mode, it's responsive to tugs at the pedals, and then you have the option to go to full manual mode. So that gives you the chance to old gear at 6,500 RPM, taken all the sounds off the engine, and then once you're done, just bang up quick pedals and move on to the next gear. There are 5 driving modes that alter powertrain characteristics as well as the sound. Sport and Sport Plus with the ESP set to sport handling are where you want to be for max fun. Steering weight also changes with each mode. Mercedes has also rebirthed the suspension and steering for the SLC, but have the changes done their bit to enhance the overall driving experience? Yes, they have. The SLC 43 seems to have taken a few steps up in the handling game as well. It's more responsive to the steering, it's more attentive to where you want it to go, and in general there's quite a lot of front-end bite. But is it the most dynamically sorted of the convertibles on sale in India? Probably not. Is it fun? Definitely yes. The SLC also works surprisingly well in everyday conditions. Ground clearance, it's got enough. You will have to work your way around the speed breakers, but it's not bad. This is an AMG, so the ride is on the firmer side, but again, you can live with it. It's not backbreakingly bad. But on the rough stuff, you can tell the SLC 43 isn't the most rigid of convertibles around. It doesn't feel as tight as something like a Porsche Boxster, for instance. There is that typical convertible scuttle shake that you get. And the thing is, the SLC 43, for all its improvements, does feel like a newer version of what is now a fairly old car. Mercedes has launched the SLC 43 for 77.5 lakh rupees ex-showroom Delhi. Now, there are 2 ways to look at the price. If you see it in light of the older SLK 55, the SLC comes across as a steal because it's 50 lakh rupees cheaper, yet gets you similar performance, fresher exteriors, and a bit more equipment on the inside. The other way to look at the SLC's pricing is that now it's comparable to rivals like the BMW Z4 and the upcoming Porsche 718 Boxster. Question is this the best convertible you can buy for this price? I think we'll have to bring all of them together to get you the answer.
At 3.28 million square kilometers, India is the 7th largest country in the world in terms of area, spanning from mountains and valleys in the north to a peninsula down south. Now imagine a road trip across the various landscapes, people and cultures that dot our country. Well, that's exactly what we embarked on with Mahindra Adventure in the monsoon month of July.
Welcome to Kashmir. We're at Nagin Lake, Srinagar, at the start of Mahindra Adventure's maiden voyage across the length of the country, starting here all the way down to Kanyakumari in the south. It's going to be a 16-day long adventure, and there's going to be a lot of fun coming up.
We were only going to be a part of it for 3 days, up to Amritsar, but we were going to make the most of that time. Although we were to start out on a Sunday morning and drive to Jammu, political strife and civilian protests had rocked the state in recent days, and it was impossible for us, a convoy of around 20 cars, to use the roads in broad daylight. So instead, we left in the dead of night to avoid any unrest. The new course of action would be to leave behind the trouble-torn state and go all the way to Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh.
It's about 5 in the morning, and we've just finished our first stop since leaving Srinagar last night at midnight. We've got another 350 to 400 kilometers left to Dharamshala, and it should take us another 10 hours.
Some serious talk, guys. Going to hit the mountains for a considerable amount of time.
Finally, once daylight broke, we all got to take a look at the grandeur of Kashmir Valley. Although our view was a little obscured by clouds, The security daylight brought with it allowed everyone to speed up a little. As we entered Punjab, with the change in scenery came a change in roads, from narrow and twisty mountain roads to arrow straight 4-lane highways. The less experienced drivers in the convoy breathed a sigh of relief and progress got faster and relatively easier. Thankfully, for the professional drivers among us, the 4-laners didn't last long as we entered Himachal and began our ascent to Dharamshala. The lovely twisties went oh so well with the lush greenery of the lower Himalayas. Towards the end of the harrowing drive, the climb got very steep, and to make matters interesting, dense fog reduced visibility to just about 50 meters. But we soldiered on. Fog lamps and headlights switched on.
And finally, we are here in Dharamshala. Nearly 17 hours after leaving Srinagar and having driven across 500 kilometers of hilly terrain, we've come all the way from Kashmir Valley to the cloudy upper reaches of Himachal Pradesh.
The first day of the drive had been a long and arduous one, and everyone went to bed pretty early. Next stop, Amritsar. Next morning, we made our way to Amritsar via Pathankot. Our destination was the Wagah border, where we would witness the celebrated change of guard ceremony. Even with a lunch stop and break for photography, we did manage to make it by 4 p.m. The scene of the border was uber patriotic, soldiers marching to the drumbeat and trying to one-up those on the neighboring nation side. Of course, we made sure we were at our patriotic best. After that, Amritsar was just a few kilometers ahead, which we reached in about an hour. Autocar India's leg of the Kashmir to Kanyakumari drive was done, and it was time to bid farewell.